Welcome to Dark Matter. Please take a moment to subscribe to my channel. Thank you.
Do you admit to being evil, Richard?
We are all evil in some form or another, are we not?
Undoubtedly, one of America's most notorious serial killers, whose name became known throughout the world. Of course, it's Richard Ramirez. Known as the Night Stalker, he was an American serial killer, rapist, and burglar who ran a number of highly publicized home invasions and a crime spree that terrorized residents from LA to San Francisco in the mid-80s. Ramirez was born Ricardo Leyva Munoz Ramirez in El Paso, Texas on February 29, 1960. His father, Julian Tapia Ramirez, was born in Camargo, Mexico. He met Richard's mother, a Colorado-born Mercedes Munoz, there when they were both 14 years old. When her family went to Juarez, Julian followed and married her in 1948 when they were 19. As he was not an American citizen, he lived in Juarez while Mercedes lived in El Paso and had their children there. They had a total of 5: Ruben, Joseph, Robert, Ruth, and finally young Richard. In 1952, Julian was deported by border security and the entire family moved to the United States, where Julian attained legal citizenship and found work at the Santa Fe Railroad. Mercedes' pregnancy with Ramirez was very difficult because the chemical fumes she inhaled at her job, which was a boot factory, caused her body to try and reject the fetus. At the age of 2, Richard Ramirez almost died when a dresser fell on him and he suffered a concussion. Growing up, he was quite a loner. When he was in 5th grade, it was discovered that he had epilepsy, though doctors said he would grow out of it. It resulted in him being removed from his position as a quarterback on the school's football team. When he was in 7th grade, his grades began slipping and he started glue sniffing. At the age of 10, he started spending nights at cemeteries and also began smoking marijuana. At the age of 12, his cousin Miguel returned from his second tour of duty in Vietnam and they began spending time together. He would show Ramirez photos of Vietnamese women he'd raped, tortured and killed, and also taught him how to keep hidden and kill with stealth. When Ramirez was 13, he witnessed Miguel shoot and kill his wife and was affected by it for the rest of his life. Shortly before that, he began burglarizing people's homes, committing petty theft, skipping school, and becoming addicted to cannabis. During the burglaries, he enjoyed walking around in the homes and going through the residents' personal belongings. During a trip to LA to see his brother Ruben, a petty criminal, Ramirez was taught more about burglaries from him. After returning to El Paso, he enrolled in Jefferson High School but dropped out after less than a year. The only subject in which he did well was physical education. He would hunt animals with his family when they were available. If not, he would go alone. He particularly enjoyed sneaking up on them and stabbing and gutting them. He liked watching horror movies and began to attend Jehovah's Witness meetings, but instead of Jehovah, he became interested in Satan. At the age of 15, while he was still in high school, he briefly held down a job at a Holiday Inn, but was fired after a few months for entering a woman's room and attempting to rape her. He was stopped by her husband. Because the couple was from out of state and wanted to move on as soon as possible, they didn't testify against him and the charges were eventually dropped. By the age of 16, he was already a skilled burglar. Shortly after turning 18, he moved to LA permanently. During his first weeks in LA, Ramirez essentially lived as a transient. He made a substantial amount of money by selling marijuana that he bought cheaply in El Paso and brought with him. He spent the money on food and stays in hotels. He made a habit of stealing cars and spent a few days using them, stealing any valuables inside and then ditching them. He became addicted to cocaine, which was very popular during the 80s. He could afford the habit by selling items that he stole during his burglaries. One night in the summer of 1978, he found a lesbian woman with whom he smoked PCP and raped her repeatedly. His interest in Satanism evolved further. He became involved with the Church of Satan. He spent some months in prison for auto theft, but was released in 1983. His sister Ruth went to LA and tried to convince Ramirez to come back to El Paso, but he turned her down. In June 28, 1984, after snorting cocaine, Ramirez burglarized the home of 79-year-old Jenny Wilco. He raped her and stabbed her to death in a brutal murder. On March the 17th of the next year, he bought a .22 revolver from a dealer and would later use it in several of his killings. Over the course of little more than a year, Ramirez proceeded to kill 12 more people. The media eventually dubbed him the Night Stalker. On August 24, 1985, Ramirez committed his last known murder, killing a man named William Carnes and raping his fiancée, leaving her alive. She got a good look at both him and the orange Toyota he was driving, including its license plates.
What have you been arrested for? Sit up. How long ago? What's your name? What have you been arrested for?
The car was found outside a shopping center in Los Angeles County. Though Ramirez was always careful not to leave behind fingerprints, he forgot to wipe off one on the rearview mirror. When the print was matched to those of his prints on record, the Night Stalker task force released his name and a picture to the media. On August 31st, 1985, Ramirez tried to steal a Mustang, not noticing that the owner was actually under the car. When he heard the car start, the man got up and forcibly pulled Ramirez out of the car. Ramirez ran across the street. He tried to steal another car, but the driver called for help. A neighbor heard the noise and called the police. When Ramirez was recognized from the published mugshot, a large number of residents banded together to apprehend him. They managed to hold him down until the police arrived and arrested him. His trial was for 14 counts of murder and 31 other felony counts, which didn't take long and included hundreds of pieces of evidence against him. As it progressed, Richard garnered several female fans who became utterly devoted to him. On October 3rd, 1989, the jury found him guilty and he was sentenced to death. In 1996, 7 years to the day after he was found guilty, he married one of his female fans, a freelance magazine editor named Doreen Leoy. After a long relationship in which they wrote letters to each other, she once stated that she would commit suicide if he were executed. They remained married until the year he died, when they divorced in 2009. Ramirez's DNA was linked to the 1984 murder of 9-year-old Mei Leung, who was beaten, raped and stabbed, though he was never charged with the killing since he was already awaiting execution. On June 7, 2013, after spending more than half his life on death row, Ramirez died of liver failure in hospital at the age of 53. He went down in history as one of the most notorious serial killers in the United States of America.
I didn't particularly care for people. A serial killer comes about by circumstances and like a recipe: poverty, drugs, child abuse. These things, contribute to a person, to a person's frustration and anger, and at some point in life, he explodes.
Why on earth would you have hurt those people? Why did you kill those people?
No comments. No comments. I cannot answer it at this time.
What was Richard's motive? To kill. That's it? To kill.
What are your thoughts about Richard Ramirez? Sick Satanist or deranged loony? Thank you for watching. Please remember to comment, like, share and subscribe. Thank you.